Welcome to the Firehorse podcast, where we talk to B2B founders and leaders about their real life experiences and wisdom on building, selling, and scaling businesses, and gain insights into what actually works across sales, marketing, go to market strategy, and AI. Today, I'm joined by Miles Bassett, a software engineer turned entrepreneur who has built two businesses from the ground up in Lawrence, Kansas. Miles is the founder and CEO of Wildman Web Solutions, a full-service AI-powered digital marketing agency serving hundreds of businesses across the US. And he's also the founder of Prairie Code AI, a boutique software development company built on the principle of quality over quantity, done by craftsmen, not coders. Miles, it's great to have you on. Welcome to the Firehorse podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that very flattering introduction.
You are so welcome. So, Miles, you've got a really interesting background. You started as a contract software engineer working with some serious organizations like Microsoft, IBM, Sprint, even federal government agencies. What made you walk away from that world and build your own thing?
Yeah, well, like you said, I did work as a contract engineer, so that meant I did shorter term contracts at big companies. These were 6, 9, maybe 12-month contracts. So I jumped around a lot. It was mentally stimulating. It was challenging. Every new contract was a new team, a new set of technologies, new languages, new platforms. So I was learning all the time. It was just drinking from a fire hose. So on the mental side of things, it was very challenging, but there was something missing there, a creative itch that just wasn't really being scratched. We were building a lot of things that didn't have a front end to them, or people really didn't care what they looked like. So there wasn't a whole lot of artistry to it. It was functionality. It was utilitarian. I was raised by artists. I have that creative side. I wanted that outlet. So during one contract, it was actually a government contract. So it was interesting, but it was a little dry. I started working on the side with artists and musicians and small businesses, breweries, restaurants, venues, doing a little bit more design work, building websites, doing some graphic design work. A lot of the stuff that I didn't really get to do in my day job. It wasn't the most technically complicated stuff, but it was fun. It was an opportunity for me to let out my creative side or my wild side. So Wildman Web Solution was born. It was my alter ego to my day job. It really wasn't until much later when I discovered a lot of market need for the kinds of things I was building at Wildman Web Solutions and combining that creativity with the technical backing that I had, that it turned into a full-time position. And I even began to consider leaving the full-time role that I had and going full-time on this. I love running this business. I love working with the small businesses that I get to work with here and take that amazing power that I saw at the biggest tech companies in the world and bring them down, make them more accessible to small businesses everywhere.
Amazing. And that leads really nicely onto my next question. I love the name Wildman Web Solutions and the story behind it. You were raised by artists, as you said, but you went down the engineering route, and Wildman was basically your creative alter ego. So, how did what started as a side gig for local bands and small businesses turn into what is now a full time agency?
Yeah, that shift happened slowly. I operated Wildman on the side for a few years before going full time into it. It was more of an escape. It was a side gig for me. But in between projects, in between contracts, I came back home to Lawrence, Kansas. That's where I'm from, and I brought with me this little side gig that I was doing. I started working with some, former friends, professional connections, and it really just started taking off. People around me saw the potential of what I was building when maybe I didn't at the time. And so this thing really just started taking off. It just made sense to start adding some other services. I'm building websites, but then of course those sites need to be found. So we need to start doing some search engine optimization. We need to start doing some ad management. We need to start getting into social media. Some of these things were a little outside of my sphere of expertise. So I need to bring in people to help me with those things. And so this business just sort of organically grew out of the need that was found in the market. And as it grew, it became more and more evident to me that this thing really had legs and could potentially be a full business. Finally, I was working full time at Sprint at that point. I had a long-term contract there. And I had other people answering the phone for me and working at Wildman during the day because I couldn't answer people or talk to people during the day while I had this day job. And then I got my next offer, the next contract at H&R Block world headquarters in Kansas City at that point for more money than I had ever been offered for a single contract before. And I said no. It was terrifying. I thought about it real long and hard before actually making that leap. But again, in hindsight, as scary as it was at the time, I think I was a little bit late to make that jump. And I'm really, really glad that I did.
Most of 2025 was obviously about repositioning Wildman around AI, and you officially relaunched in 2026 with a whole new brand and direction. You mentioned you saw two doors to me: be the leader in this or get swept aside by it. So, what made you so confident that was the right call when a lot of agencies were still sitting on the fence?
I think there's a lot of people in our space that just don't really know how to react to the shifts in technology that have been happening. I've been watching this for a while. Obviously, OpenAI came out in, I think, 2017. It wasn't really super popular until just a few years ago, but the advent of consumer facing AI tools has shifted the game entirely. So I've been trying to stay on top of it. I actually have been working with AI tools a lot longer than most people here. Nearly 10 years ago, I got the opportunity to work on a project through IBM's Bluemix API and actually talk with Watson, their AI project at the time. You may or may not remember. He was famously on Jeopardy, and it was sort of gimmicky at the time, but it was really the first glimpse of what was going to be the future of this consumer facing AI tools. I got to see under the hood or behind the curtain there very, very early. So that gave me the confidence looking at this. I've been watching these shifts. I've been trying to shift my business along with it and add some technology updates to it, but I really saw it as not enough. The market was shifting too fast, and we needed to make some major changes. Or we would have one of those two options. Either we're going to get left behind here. The services that we're offering are going to be commoditized by these platforms, and these things that we're currently doing, or at least the way that we're currently doing them, are not going to be needed in that way. Or we can be leading the charge here. We can be the experts in the field. Given my technical background and my history with this technology, we were actually perfectly positioned to be the leaders in this space rather than the ones getting replaced or left behind. So I decided to make a big shift in our business to push everything over towards AI, automation, and really leaning into these new technologies, updating our workflows and processes. We didn't get rid of anything necessarily, but we're still managing ad campaigns, but we're doing so with an assistive AI workflow. We're still building websites. Those websites are just now being upgraded to our smart sites where they're working for clients. They're not just informational display, they're acting on behalf of our clients. So it's just taking what we were doing, how we were doing it, upgrading it, and incorporating this new technology, and doing so from a place of technological authority, a place that I can hit that maybe other agency owners or other people in our space, our competition, just aren't capable of accomplishing at that level. So I was confident in our ability to make that position switch. We officially did that in the beginning of 2026, though obviously we're working on it through all of 2025. That came with a little bit of a branding update, new website, repositioning a lot of the services that we had there, the launch of our smart site program, and a whole new ad campaign around everything, just trying to blast us out there and tell people what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yes, and on the smart sites, that's obviously mentioned on your website versus standard websites. So describing a standard site as just an online brochure, what's the difference and what does a smart site actually do for a business that a standard website can't?
Well, we've been building websites for our business clients for a long time, and I'm happy to have done that. I'm proud of the output that we've made, building hundreds of sites for all sorts of different kinds of businesses. But ultimately, a site built, let's say, 5 years ago was largely informational display only. It says who you are, what you're doing, and how someone might contact you. Maybe there's a click to call button on there. Maybe there's a form that you can fill out that sends a structured email, but that's really all it's doing. There's no real functionality there. Versus a smart site now incorporates a lot of our new technologies. On the back end, behind the scenes, working with our agency, your website lives on our platform. And on our platform, right there next to your website, is a CRM. That CRM, that's a customer or client relationship management system. It's really just a big contact list, but it stores all of your information from all the leads that come through the website, all in a structured way. It's searchable, sortable. You can do something with it. That connects to our automations engine, which is again built on the same platform. That can be triggered by form fills or web chats or phone calls, or anything that happens within our ecosystem can trigger an automation or be a step within an automation. We built out AI features, including full AI agents. These are AI employees that you can hire on. They're pre-configured. They're ready to go out of the box. Air quotes here, hire one of these AI employees, set them up in your business, and they're working on your behalf. They're living on your website. They're updating your CRM. They're kicking off automations. They're asking for reviews, creating social media content. The entirety of what we call a small business's online presence is managed on this system. And these agents, these automations allow for things to actually happen in the background while the business owner or whoever's managing and operating this is asleep, or they're, off doing their own thing. So a website is no longer just this brochure. It's a marketing piece that you send people to, and maybe they fill out the form and maybe they don't. It's informational display only. Now the site really acts as a web application. It has functionality. It has agents operating the back end. It has intelligence. It has a database there within a CRM. It has all of these automated workflows that it can execute. So that's the big shift from a standard website to what we're now building, these smart sites, which still say who you are and what you do, and it helps you get found online and everything, but then also it's doing work on your behalf in the background.
That sounds amazing. I think everyone should have a smart site. Let's talk about Prairie Code. You broke it off as its own entity in 2025, partly because of what AI had done to the cost and speed of development, and partly because it needed to stand on its own. You described it as built by craftsmen, not coders. What does that actually mean in practice, and why does that positioning matter to you?
Sure. Well, as we talked about at the beginning here, my background is in software development. I still like building large scale applications. So we have the application that powers Wildman I was just talking about, and I get to contribute to that and build new features and everything. But that's really it's one project that serves hundreds and hundreds of clients, but it is just one big project. I like building other things. And sometimes clients would come to me for building out their mobile app or building out their large scale web application, some sort of larger scale enterprise grade software. And I like being able to offer that. At the same time, it was weird to go to the digital marketing company for application development. It didn't really make sense as a service there. So I broke it off into its own business. That is Prairie Code AI. That is my container for building larger scale enterprise grade software. And I separated those two at the beginning of 2025 just so that I can silo out the marketing and communications there and make sure that we're talking to the right people in the right way. You're correct that the development environment has really changed over the last few years. My favorite example of this, and I think I put an article up on the website about it, was that I got approached by a company recently. They wanted to build a software, and it sounded eerily similar to something that I've quoted before. So I went back and looked for it, and I did find it. It was someone else entirely, completely different pitch on everything, but a very similar software. So I really got to see an apples comparison of what a quote looks like now versus what a quote looked like a few years ago. It's a fairly substantial piece of software. And previously, it would have taken me a team of 10 developers and probably $1 million over a year to actually build this software out. We proposed that, and the project didn't move forward. They couldn't afford the bill that was going to come with building out this comprehensive piece of software. Now we got the same thing, and I was able to give this proposal over as a solo developer. I could build this on my own in a couple of months for a fraction of the cost, and that project is moving forward because this person could actually afford to move forward with that much lower development cost. And I'm able to do it much more efficiently at a higher profit margin because it's just me. With these new AI assistive coding technologies, I'm able to do what it would have taken me 5 to 10 people a few years ago in order to build. So in doing that, I've developed an internal process using these AI coding tools to go the entire life cycle of software, from ideation, that's just working with you on your immediate idea before any code happens, into planning, pre-development work, into actually developing and writing the code and building the app. That's what everyone thinks about here, but really we're skipping those first two steps. They're really important to get the idea right and get that plan nice and solid. Then we move into development, and then we work into post-development. That's DevOps stuff, publication, maintenance, all the hosting requirements, everything it takes to keep an app up and running, especially under real production level load. I have processes and technologies for every step along that way that are AI assisted with me at the helm as the lead developer, the architect of everything. And the cost of all of that has gone way down. The speed of everything has gone way up. And it's lowered that barrier of entry for custom software development so that anyone, a new startup, someone within a company that wants to build an internal application to improve their internal processes. We have several people from the university that are coming in. They have their own labs and they need custom software built for their research. Any of these people can come to me. We can go through this process and build true enterprise grade software at a fraction of the cost and in weeks or months rather than months or years.
Something that genuinely caught my interest when I was researching you is that you talk openly about your faith on the Prairie Code site and you connect it directly to how you work. So you describe the old craftsmen who believed their work was a form of worship and that even the parts no one would ever see were done perfectly. How does that show up day to day in how you run the business and pick your projects?
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about Prairie Code because I am running it as a solo operation. It's an expression of me and how I work professionally. These are also very large projects, so we only handle a couple of them per year. I have to be very selective about the projects that I take on. So on the site, on the about page, but also kind of weaved out throughout the entire site, is that mission, vision, values side of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I go about it the way that I am. It's true that my faith drives me to work in the way that I do. It means that I see my work as that expression of my faith. You mentioned the old school craftsmen. That's really where I'm taking the inspiration. They used to look at this and even those tiny little joints in the backs of cabinets that no one would ever see, they really worked and tried to make it beautiful. They would engrave the backside of tiles that they would be installing that would then be sealed up forever. No one would ever see it, but they know that God is seeing it. So that really forced them to work to a much higher standard. And they've held that standard uniformly and across everything that they were doing, high visibility, low visibility, the things that were really important or the really not important things. They couldn't just cut corners. So it led to this new standard of work for them. So that's something I really want to communicate. It is something that I use in my selection process when I'm choosing to work with someone. I have a series of things that I'm really trying to do. I'm not going to build something that I see unethical or dehumanizing. Then I believe that it communicates something to my clients about what they can expect from me. They know that I'm going to be delivering to the highest standard that I possibly can, even in the areas where they're not going to see it. I think many people are concerned, especially non-technical founders, when they're working with me, they don't know what they're looking at. I could walk them through all of the code and they still wouldn't know what they're looking at. They really have to trust me to build this and to build it right. And so even if they don't share my faith necessarily, they know that they're getting a good product out of it, that they're getting that work that comes from mine. So I think it's important to share that with them, to communicate why I am doing what I'm doing and why I hold everything to such a high standard.
I love that. And it really shows that you're so genuine and honest, and it's extremely refreshing. Next question is, you've talked about the fact that many people try AI once, get a useless result, and never come back to it. You've actually built a full decision matrix framework to help businesses avoid that trap. Can you walk us through it?
Yes, so I think that that is primarily a result of decision fatigue, where there's too many tools out there. They're coming out left and right, these brand new shiny objects. It's so tempting, especially from the entrepreneurial mind. Our curse and our gift is that we're constantly looking for opportunities. We see them even when they're not there. And we love seeing that new thing coming out. We want to jump onto it. And so we tend to bite off more than we can chew. Saying no and being selective about things actually ends up being one of the skills that get someone to that next level of entrepreneurship. I think it's indicative of someone that is reaching a much higher level of business when they're able to self select and focus down and say no to everything except for the highest leverage activities. But in the world of AI and technology right now, things are building so quickly. Like I said, I can build things 10 times faster than I used to, which means that everyone else can too. And everyone's got an idea and they're all building tools and they're launching them left and right. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. So there's just this paralysis by analysis that happens. Way too many tools. And it's way too tempting to just pick something up and start working on it until you see that next thing pop up. And then you're working on that and you see that next thing pop up. And then you're working on that. So The way out of this is to pick one thing and stick with it. A lot of these tools, they can't possibly work. They're not going to give you a good result unless they have an appropriate level of context about you and your business. They know how you work, everything about your offer, the way that you sell, the way that you fulfill. It needs a lot of information. I think we're thinking about this like a software subscription. You get Microsoft Office, you turn it on, and then you are able to use the features that are there. You start making documents. You get Excel, and you've got a spreadsheet there. You turn on the software, you expect it to have a series of features. You use the features, and then that's it. It's working at 100% on day one. That's not how these tools work. We should envision these more like hiring a person. And if you hired a new person today and said, hey, this is my business, go, would you expect them to just get everything right out of the gate? Even if you described everything to them to the best of your ability on day one, you're going to miss stuff. You're not going to think about things. There's going to be some things that you have so deeply ingrained and automated in your psyche that you don't even think to explain to them. And they're going to need some rep going through this. So imagine hiring a receptionist and then you train them up on everything and then you listen to their phone calls and then you say, actually, I forgot to tell you about this, but don't answer that in that way, or don't say that word, or hey, this would have been a better answer to that. You expect to have this training period. And that's really more how I think we need to be evaluating these AI tools when we pull them in. If you're just pulling in a new AI tool and you're expecting it to work on day one and magically give you this fantastic result, you're going to be disappointed every time. And that's what I see people doing. So the framework is essentially this. Don't look at the tools, close your eyes, and think of your own business. Think of your own processes. Imagine an actual pain that you're having, something that's costing you time, money, sanity, but something real. This doesn't have to be the biggest problem in your business. Ideally, actually, it's something fairly small to start off with. Just a little something that's burning 10 minutes of your day every day. Grab that pain and then go and find a tool that addresses that pain. So we're not starting with the tools. We're not searching for, biggest, best new AI tool for my industry today. You're starting with the pain and then you go and find a solution to that pain. You pick that tool up and then you make a commitment to use it regularly every day for a couple of weeks. Now, the exact timeline here might vary depending on the size and scope of the problem you're trying to solve, but the important part is making that regular commitment. The important part is that conviction to use this regularly for a long period of time. At that point, you are going to get one of two outcomes. Either this tool is going to do what it said it's going to do, you're actually going to be able to solve that problem, and you have a real, tangible solution that you have created using this AI tool. You've made real value come out of this tool within your business. You've got an amazing result here, and you can snowball that because now you save 10 minutes. You can build that 10 minutes into building out your next solution. And maybe that saves you another 20 minutes a day. And before you know it, you've saved yourself an hour a day. You have 5 hours per working week that you can throw into building maybe a larger, more ambitious solution that does more and more and more. The other solution or endpoint you might reach here is that you didn't solve the problem you were trying to do, but you've learned a lot along the way. You've learned how to describe the problem. A lot of the people I work with, they couldn't explain the problem to another human being, let alone a computer. There's too many externalities and other variables at play. That tiny little problem you thought was super simple is actually complicated in ways that you didn't understand until you tried to explain it to someone else. Especially here when you're explaining it to a computer that takes everything super literally. It doesn't allow you to skip over even the tiniest gap. So now you have a much more comprehensive understanding of the problem. You probably have some documentation around that problem. You've gotten better at prompting and using these tools, at least this type of tool. So now when you turn around and either try a different tool to solve that, because maybe it was just a tool mismatch, or maybe it turns out that problem wasn't really the best candidate for automation, but now you understand how these automations work. You understand how AI works a little bit more, and you're more able to identify a specific problem within your business that better matches its capabilities because now you understand the tool better. So again, either you have real tangible outcomes or you've learned something. Either way, you're winning and you're getting ahead of your competition in this AI race. So that's the way we do it. Start with pain, find a tool that addresses that pain, make a commitment to use that, and then either roll it out or learn from the process.
What do you think is the most underrated element of AI right now? Not the obvious, but something you feel isn't getting nearly enough attention.
Underrated. There's a lot of really cool, high powered stuff I think we can talk about. But as far as just something that's being underrated, I'm going to say the fact that we can now create applications with verbal interfaces. I'll unpack that a little bit. A lot of what I do in building applications for people, but this can be building a simple website or building out a dashboard to envision mass amounts of data, an ads analytics platform, or a SEO tool, whatever it is that I'm building here. A big part of it is building that user interface. So at some point, you as the end user need to be able to access the software and see this vast amount of information structured in a way that you can actually understand and interact with the application. And so that's actually one of the biggest challenges in building any kind of app is building the interface, especially when you get to something that has a lot of data in it, a bunch of charts. And imagine this big complicated dashboard that you then need to find. And the bigger and more complicated and comprehensive and robust that application gets, the crazier that dashboard gets, the harder it is to find things, and the more important it is to get that user interface down. My line for user interface is usually this: if you as the user don't know where something is, guess and you're probably right. If that's the case, then I've created a good user interface. I don't need to explain to you where something is. You can just guess. It's intuitive enough that you're probably right. So that's really the challenge that we're trying to get through. But as you can imagine, that can be really difficult when dealing with high data applications. Now with AI, we have the ability to create an entirely different interface that we were never able to do before because we have software that understands natural language. I can build an app that I can just talk to, either in chat or actually verbally. So imagine that same application. There's a ton of data in the background, maybe analyzing your ads on all of your different advertising on all your different platforms and all the different campaigns you're running. So many numbers and data points and everything. Instead of a big, crazy dashboard that I have to look at and analyze charts visually and find the right report and everything, I now just have a chat window. I can ask, hey, what's my top performing ad? Give me a click-through rate, give me the ROI or the cost per acquisition on here, a couple of different stats on that particular ad, and it spits it back out. You can then ask follow-up questions on that. That's something you can't do on a dashboard or a traditional user interface. So you can make your report, but then if you have follow-up questions, you go, okay, now what? Whereas with this interface, I can follow up with that, like, hey, how did you calculate that? How did you get to that conclusion? What if we add in this variable? So there is this real conversational interface between you and the data. That's something that I think just really isn't talked about enough. It's kind of taken for granted that we have these chatbots. We can just talk to things. But the power of being able to create an interface that is purely natural language and talking to someone in a way that they would normally just speak to another human, that is so overpowered and so underappreciated. I think that is going to be the next wave of really interacting with software. It's not going to be a pile of dashboards and user interfaces. It's just going to be conversational. And that's a massive shift.
So, if anyone listening wants to find out more about either Wildman Web Solutions or Prairie Code AI, where's the best place for them to go?
Of course, our website's wildmanweb.com, but we put out a lot of material there. I've got one person on staff whose entire job is just to put out material on the website, writing resources and articles, how-tos, guides. We're really putting a lot of work to make that site as useful to people as possible, so please check that out. And of course, it has more details about our offerings. And our website for Prairie Code is prairiecode.ai. You can check that out there. It's much more simple, but you can see more about what we're doing, my decision-making process, what I'm trying to do there, the mission, vision, values side of everything. Of course, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, everything. And you can follow me personally on LinkedIn. That's Miles Bassett on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And I will put those contact details below the video as well. Miles, this has been a brilliant conversation. I especially loved hearing about the philosophy behind Prairie Code and how your background as a technologist combined with that creative side you mentioned has shaped everything that you've built. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time. And to our audience, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.